Okay, welcome everyone. Oh, and look at that, perfect time, and Cassidy's joining in. Welcome everyone to our August Klamath Film member meeting. For those of you who are joining for the first time, these are monthly meetings that we hold here at Retro Room Records in Klamath Falls, as well as via Zoom. It's an opportunity to hear about upcoming events, any sort of production work that may be going on in Klamath County, a chance to network with filmmakers, film fans throughout the state of Oregon. We often get people from out of state. We always have a special guest every month, and our special guest has joined us super early. Usually they don't come on till like 6:30 or 7. But Katherine Wilson is here to talk to us about her extensive career. She's worked on over 100 films that have been shot in Oregon. And so, and she'll be involved with the Klamath Independent Film Festival this year as well. So Katherine, sit tight because we always go through introductions, and then I have a couple of announcements and a few things to go through before we get a chance to hear about your incredible career. But we definitely want to hear some stories from you. This is very casual, nothing really too formal. So first of all, for those who don't know me, my name is Kurt Lidke. I'm the board chair of Klamath Film. I am a filmmaker myself. I'm the videographer for Klamath Community College and a photographer, social media manager, public information officer, and commercial drone pilot for both aerial and underwater. Owen, why don't you introduce yourself with wherever the microphones are? Oh.
Thank you. So let me scoot into the frame for a second for the web camera. So my name is Bowen Browder. I am a board member for Klamath Film. Work very closely with Kurt. I am a Klamath Falls native. I currently work at the local college, Oregon Institute of Technology, as a residence life coordinator. I'm an aspiring actor. I've always loved storytelling. I've always loved getting involved in performance of any kind. Always also really appreciated film as an artistic medium. So very happy to be here.
Thank you, Bowen. Joyce and Howard back there. Grab a mic.
Howard Stapleton, 3 years in Klamath Falls, previously in Hollywood, retired news and documentary photographer, exclusively in all of my work's been in television. I'd say 85% of it in non-commercial public television.
I'm Joyce, Howard's wife, and I'm a local independent photographer here in Klamath Falls, a member of Klamath Film and also of the Klamath Art Association. Happy to be here. Nice to see old friends.
My name is Chuck Edson, and I have virtually no film experience, but looking at me, you can know that I've had lots of other experience.
Film watching experience.
Watching experience
Yes.
and life experiences. I worked most of my career with criminals and there are a lot of stories in Klamath Falls about that to go way back, and our guest made reference to some of that. But I'm here. I attended a Klamath Films meeting more than 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, and have since become very concerned with the political polarization. My family is worried about me as I've become kind of a modern Don Quixote or something, and obsessed with the circumstances and working. And after 77 years, it becomes sort of a social activist trying to get some action going to depolarize the situation in our community and hopefully in the country and world. And I need a lot of help with that. I spent about 2 weeks ago, I had about an hour and a half elevator pitch with Court, and it went along great. And I hope he's doing well, but here for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne, hello, sir.
Yes.
Hey, thank you for joining as always. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Wayne Sweat. I'm vice chair of Klamath Film. I'm an actor. I've acted in, well, not all my projects are on my IMDb because I've done commercials and stage plays and other live acts and student films and shorts and some feature films, and absolutely adore acting. Basically got into it on a dare about 12 years ago, so I'm a late bloomer, but been loving it. I've also produced and directed and about everything else on some lower budget films, including stuff that I've produced. But yeah, just love film. I mean, performing in plays in front of live audiences was fun because you get the automatic reaction. But love working and playing in front of the camera. So that said, I'll pass it on. Cassidy, I guess.
Sure. Cassidy, hello.
She's gone.
Oh,
Nope, I'm here.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Cassie. I can't stay too long today, but I just wanted to pop in and see and virtually say hello. But I'm the assistant executive director for Klamath Film. I'm really interested in my background's more documentary style and like conservation storytelling. But love being a part of this organization. Love all of our members' support. So thanks everyone so much for being here, especially so excited to have you here tonight. So thank you so much for coming and showing up, and really excited to hear some of your stories and everything. So thanks.
Terrific. Lori. Hi, Lori. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lori. I like creative endeavors and watching film. I've been a Klamath Film member for about 5 years now. And I was on the board for a couple of years, and also done some volunteering. I have also done some backstage work and spotlighting with the Ross Ragland Theater, which is a local theater here. And I had a short film that I created, The Puzzle, that got into KIF 2020, and Squirrely Puzzling I made this year and got into this year's KIF. So if you were wanting a short film about, a heartwarming and funny tale of squirrels and a jigsaw puzzle, you got this.
A very specific subgenre, right?
Yes. The subgenre you might not know you needed.
The best kind.
Yeah. And Mary Jane. Hi, Mary Jane. Thank you for joining us as always.
This is Mary Jane's husband. She
Oh.
isn't here yet. I just got this up for her, so when she gets home from another activity, she can take part. So
Perfect.
I won't say
Okay.
anything more.
Okay. Thank you. And then Nina. Hello, Nina. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Nina Davis. New here. This is the first time I've attended your guys' meetings. I love film. I just graduated got my master's in cinematography. So just getting started. It's production design's my favorite thing to do. I love creating like the look and the sets and designs for film and stuff. So that's kind of what I've been doing, is just working whatever I can.
Well, thank you for being a part of this. So a couple of quick announcements. First of all, does anyone have any projects or anything that they've been working on lately or upcoming things that they want to share before we go through a few announcements?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet official. Okay. Well, there's a couple of pending films that are coming here very soon. So I'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, our film festival is coming up soon. There are our prices this year. I am almost done with updating the website, but the tickets are live. So if you want tickets, it'll be September 16th to the 18th at the Ross Ragland, and also live streaming and on demand yet again through Eventive. So if you can't attend in person, you can watch every film on your own time, and we will live stream everything that we do on stage. 3 days, opening night, Friday night, September 16th. We will show one film as we always do and have a street festival. And that one film will be National Lampoon's Animal House, which is a big reason why we have our guest tonight. So our plan is that we're going to have some food trucks, a beer garden, like we always do. And we want everyone to dress in their best toga, because we will have a toga costume contest on stage where we'll give away some prizes. And Katherine is being very gracious with all of her incredible connections, since our guest tonight worked on the film National Lampoon's Animal House, in lining up some of the cast members to be able to join us for a virtual cast reunion afterwards.
Oh,
So we will be seeing the quintessential Oregon comedy film for our 10th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. So that'll be Friday night. Saturday will be all of our feature films. And we'll also have an interesting panel discussion involving Modoc tribes and the Modoc Wars of the 1870s. Sunday will be all of our shorts, where we do our K through 12 films, as well as all of our short films. We'll also have an interesting panel about first responders and military veterans dealing with PTSD, because we have several films in this year that cover that topic. And then we will end Sunday night with our awards. And as always, we do things a little bit different because we are the Made in Oregon Film Festival, the only festival around that exclusively shows Made in Oregon films. The Southern Cascade Woodcrafters Guild are meeting actually right now. Their meeting is at the exact same time to, I found out late last night who our winners are, and it is confidential, top secret. Only Cassidy and myself know who won. They are working on our awards. So unlike any other film festival, we get all of our awards hand-carved, custom, one-of-a-kind art pieces. So they are specific to each winning film. So it may be a character from a film or a theme from the film. So every filmmaker, if they get first place, not only do they get a cash prize, but they also get a one-of-a-kind art piece that is specific to their film. We also have several cast and crew calls in the very immediate future. I know you can't really see that for those of you who are sitting here because we're having some tech issues on our side, unfortunately.
In ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to let me, but we have a, first of all, Chuck is here because there is a political debate coming up August 9th, correct? And we want to have it filmed.
Yes, thank you for, I was afraid I would have to do this on my own.
No. So this first slide is information about that. So if you want to explain what the plan is and what you need.
Yes, I kind of introduced myself there. I'm associated with Braver Angels, which is, I learned recently, one of over 900 organizations in the country trying to address the political polarization problem. And the most noteworthy thing about that observation is that probably nobody's heard of most of them or any of them, which kind of is enlightening in a way about how little attention the efforts are getting to address this. I'm associated with Braver Angels, and I have made an effort to recruit people on the right. I'm a left-leaning person, and Braver Angels calls blue. And I was directed to an organization, a local group called People's Rights. I didn't know at the time. It's founded by Ammon Bundy, and I can assure you that is quite conservative. However, I attended some of their meetings and have been accepted quite graciously by most participants. And I recruited a co-chair. Her name is Kristen Clark, who I'm not sure what all of her opinions are, but she is a very open-minded person and has embraced the principles of Braver Angels and is cooperating with me with as much energy as I do while she raises a family and everything else. So I've been very heartened by her participation. She's brought some people in. I've gotten Jonathan Chengeri and Faith Leith on my side for a discussion, quasi debate, but mostly focused on how to make elections trusted by the public. So we're going to have that discussion this next Tuesday at the basement of the Unitarian / Quaker Church here in town, and would very much appreciate someone to come in and help us film this thing. It'll be about 2 hours, and then we need all kinds of help with how to do this. We have two mottos we're running on. One is Kiva Sugarman's, I ain't mad at nobody. He's a local figure from history, Jewish fellow who was around at the time of World War II, and it's pretty remarkable. That was his attitude.
That's where Sugarman's Corner
Yeah,
comes from. That's where his business was
Sugarman's Corner
located.
named after him. He's a noted figure by the county and city. And then this modest motto I've come up with, and I hope to get it more adopted. And it's just this humble thing that let's Klamath County show the nation how this is done. And it's going to take a whole lot more than Chuck Edson to do this. And all the help. And I want to be able to really kind of disengage and support by the end of the year, but I want to see something happening. And I think a lot of people do.
So what you need is you need technical assistance
Yes.
from one of our members or someone in town who
Yes.
could film the debate and then edit it into something that you can use for social media, or how do you intend to use it?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
I
okay.
need help with all of that. Yes, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Do you need a moderator?
We have moderators, kind of. That's Kristen and I. We do not qualify under Braver Angels, but we can't get, they're allowing us to do this anyway. I'm going to moderate my two liberals. She'll moderate her two conservatives. And we're following Braver Angels models, which have very strict.
They have their own guidelines.
Yeah, yeah, we're going to have it. And we've been communicating with the participants pretty regularly here. And so, expect it to be a civil discussion with a constructive end.
Do you just need like one static camera of a table, or do you need multiple angles working on it, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I whatever. I mean,
Okay.
anything, if we can borrow the equipment and try to do something, that would be one possibility, but hopefully there would be.
So I have a live streaming rig that would work well just to record this with multiple cameras. My issue is that I have mandatory meetings Tuesday mornings related to work, but I can see if no one else is able to help on this, or if no one else has the time to possibly help out next Tuesday, I might be able to film this. I might be able to get out of a meeting or two to be able to assist you, but
We'll kiss you on camera.
So we'll see if anyone else chimes in, and if not, let's talk and I'll figure out a way to make it work.
But it's mainly technical assistance.
Pardon me?
Mainly technical assistance you would need.
Yeah, I think we got it pretty well set up. I don't think there'll be a lot of people there. And we kind of prefer to kind of keep it small because we're testing everything. So we're moving ahead of Braver Angels, which has, it's a network, but it's in Portland. And
They have chapters.
Yeah, and well, we are an alliance that started 2 days ago, and I really got involved in this in March. So, but I think time is of the essence.
Okay. So some other things going on. We've been in contact. Yeah, no problem. We've been in contact with a BBC film crew for some time now. There was one that was supposed to come out this spring to do a nature documentary, and I think that plans changed a little bit. I think this may be affiliated with that, or it might be a totally unrelated project. I don't have all the details of the project, but I do know August 13th, 14th, as well as principal photography, August 17th, a BBC documentary crew is going to be in Klamath filming. They're borrowing some equipment from us to be able to do it, but they are looking for a couple people that might be interested in doing some PA work just to kind of help out with whatever. And they are also looking for a sound person, preferably with some experience, that could help out with the overall production. So if that, and it is paid gigs. So if that is of interest to you, or you know someone who might be interested in being a part of that, I don't have all the details yet, but as I do, I can pass those along. But yeah, I figured you might want to be a part of it, Bowen. Just FYI, we have a BBC film crew that's coming to the area. Also, possibly a feature film that's shooting later this month at either downtown or possibly at KCC. That's still a little up in the air. And earlier today, I spoke with a filmmaker who has been to our film festival in previous years and had such a good time here. He has been developing a script for a feature film specifically for Klamath Falls. He said that he has a $3 million budget secured for this feature film that right now he's location scouting. So I'm helping him out with some of that, but look for possibly later this year or maybe sometime next year, a multi-million-dollar feature film production coming to Klamath County, which is fantastic news. More of those, please. Additionally, we have a request from Daily Bagel. If anyone has a PA system that we may be able to borrow, they're doing a fundraiser on August 28th, similar to when we had Santa Claus at the Daily Bagel for Snowflake Festival. Wayne, I'm sure probably remembers that well. So they're doing a fundraiser for the annual Pride event that happens in town, and they're looking for a PA system and some other tech help. So maybe helping out with that, unless someone is willing to volunteer and help out. I believe it's August 28th from 9 to 3 at the Daily Bagel on Main Street. That's what I have as far as announcements. In anything, I know I threw it out there, but any projects that people are proud of, or things upcoming, or just things you've seen that you're really excited about before we get a chance to get to know our guest?
Casting a couple more short films, but no dates, no shooting dates or anything like that yet. So I hadn't really been going there.
Okay.
We did just finish, Bowen and I did just finish that other project, Discourse,
Duplicity.
Duplicity. There it is.
Coming to the world premiere September 17th.
Yep. So Duplicity is going to be the last film of our Saturday program at the film festival. So we'll go straight from that to the filmmaker networking after party.
And then the things potentially in the works for some fun things that go along with it. But
yep. Anyone else want to chime in on something, or we can get to know our amazing guest who's joined us super early. Like I said, Catherine, normally I tell them like 6:30ish so we can get through all this stuff so you don't have to endure this. But well, thank you, Catherine, for being here. Just a quick FYI, Catherine is an author. Here is one of her books, Echoes from the Set, which I also have up on screen. And that is a photo of her with John Belushi on set of Animal House below that. Catherine also gave me this, Animal House, our alma mater, which she said is out of print.
wow.
And it is autographed by her. We will probably have this as a prize during the film festival, or maybe we will auction this off. But it is a collection of personal photos of hers. This is all your shots, right? From the production?
No, the photographers have passed away, and they gave me the rights to license them.
Oh, terrific. Well, it's still behind the scenes of National Lampoon's Animal House with a lot of photos people probably have not seen before. So, Catherine, let's get an idea. First of all, you are from Klamath County. So thank you. It's always great to connect with people who have those local ties.
Happy to have another native.
Yeah. And you have been, when we talked a couple days ago, you told me you had no plans of being in the film industry, and yet you are known as the godmother of film in Oregon for your extensive work across more films than you can probably count at this point. How can you kind of give us some background on you, get to know your whole experience and how you got into the film industry?
Well, thank you so much. And a lot of it was because of people like you and what you guys are doing right now. Essentially, back when networking was a new buzzword, I was trying to get people together, kind of like what you guys are doing. And I'd been going to the legislature and been asking for money for Indigenous filmmakers, because Tom McCall, and I think Tom McCall was the one that really got the power of the filmmaking dollar on location in Oregon. So that's how it started. And he was a documentary filmmaker. People don't know that. He started as a voice on a radio station in Portland, but he was from Christmas Valley. He was from, the God's country, Klamath, Lakeview, Christmas Valley, Central Oregon area. And he was just so charismatic. He became governor, and he loved it when Kirk Douglas and, all these guys would come up, and they were making Jeff Chandler films in the Wallowas, on the backside of the Wallowas. And so I was a political animal. My father was a Republican, and I started in Klamath Falls working in politics. And I wanted to say that I'm so proud of what Chuck is doing with this wonderful bridge the gap kind of thing. As a bicultural, someone who's, it has Indigenous genes and white genes. I find myself a bicultural bridge a lot. And bridging gaps, that is just so huge, Chuck, and I'm so proud of what you're doing there. I also learned, and it was Ken Kesey who told a story about his dad was a dairy farmer, and it started in a barn. And it was a co-op during the Depression, a dairy co-op. And my grandfather was a dairy farmer up here in Eugene. And the girls that worked in the office wore high heels. And if you've been in a dairy barn, the steps are really steep. And they were always tripping, you know, crawling down from the loft where the office was. So Keezy's dad put a mirror up. And it's a metaphor for a camera. When you have a camera filming a debate or filming something as important as this event, people behave themselves better, right? When the power of film, the power of camera is huge. That's one reason I love it so much. So anyway, getting back to the fact that I was just trying to get more money for Indigenous filmmakers to get jobs on these Hollywood movies that were coming and dropping all this money in Oregon, mostly Westerns. And all of a sudden, how that happened was Keezy's Merry Pranksters were filmmakers. The very first cinematographer as a crew member was Mike Hagan, who was on the bus, and they filmed with an Aeroflex the trip to New York in 1964. And, you know, there was that barn raising mentality of Oregon people to help each other. And they hired me and they taught me everything that I know about film. And I guess you could call them poetic cinema films. They were early 60 films that didn't have a lot of talking. It was mostly visual, which as an Indigenous person, I really loved because I love images. They, you know, one image is worth 1,000 words. And I was struggling as an English major at the University of Oregon, but I got to tell you guys before how I came to Eugene, and it was a really rough time in Klamath Falls in those days. My grandparents lived here. They were pay dirt farmers that first settled in Bonanza and didn't do very well. And my grandmother decided to become a teacher and took a wagon train to Grants Pass to get a teaching certificate.
Wow.
That was like turn of the century stuff. But, and I never did want to be a filmmaker. I was a poet. I went to the U of O to teach, like my parents taught the Chilliquin, and my grandmother was a teacher. But, and I pretty much, when I was living in Klamath Falls in those army barracks that used to be behind the Tower Theater, you guys, I don't know if any of you remember them. My parents were trying to save up to buy a house on Laird Street. And so we lived there for a couple of years after we had to leave Chilliquin. And we had to leave Chilliquin because I witnessed the murder of my neighbor when I was 5 years old. And they continued to teach there. I continued to go to school there, but we just didn't live there. It was a really hard time for the Indigenous people, a lot of trauma, a lot of problems with the termination of the tribe in 57. So here I am in these army barracks behind the Tower Theater. And back then, if you had a Williams bread wrapper, or maybe it was Franz, and a quarter, which was my allowance for washing the dishes, I could trundle off to the Tower Theater and see just about anything I wanted to. And one time I got in really big trouble. I got grounded for a year from seeing movies because I had trundled off to watch a double feature of Japanese horror films, The H-Man and The Woman Eater. I'll never forget it. I was 7. So I loved film and I loved stories, and I heard one of the members here talk about loving, you know, plays, and I love story. And so when I was moved to Eugene, I ended up at South Eugene High School, which is kind of known as the famed school in Oregon back then. And
That's my alma mater.
yes, and There was a guy named Ed Ragazzino there who was an actual Hollywood actor who taught drama, and he created these giant summer shows in theater. It built the Holt Center essentially for him. And he was my teacher in drama, and he told me that I was a natural actress. Well, I didn't like being in front of the camera. I wanted to be behind it. And that's pretty much where I stayed. And oh, I need to correct you for just a little. My husband and I worked on 100 films, not me.
Oh, okay.
But because I stayed home after a couple of decades working on location and raised my kids and took care of his elderly parents. And he went off and worked. And he worked on Twilight and a bunch of great films with Tommy Lee Jones, all shot in Oregon. So getting back to, this Klamath connection, my dad was a really close friend of James Ivory's. And I got to sit at Rennie's Landing with both my dad and James Ivory for a couple of hours and listen to them just cackle about the days when they were, pre-pubescent teenagers. But James Ivory and my dad bonded because my dad had polio, and James Ivory was considered queer. And it wasn't, slang for gay or whatever. It was just, he was odd. And I always felt I was odd too. I always felt like I just really never fit in until I met my tribe of filmmakers. And then I knew I was home. So Ivory is very special to my dad, and I've got some great pictures of them together. And he came out of Klamath Falls, and so did Chris Iyer. And there was a wonderful historian who passed away a couple of years ago named Ann Richardson, who said that there's some other very notable artistic people that have come out of Klamath. And she wanted to know what was in the water, what was it about Klamath that created successful filmmakers? And I told her that I actually wrote a book about it. You're going to have to read about what I told her. But I think there's a very specific reason. And the success of the Klamath Film Festival tells me that at the heart of Klamath County are people, I don't know, the beauty of Klamath Falls. That Ross Ragland photograph, it almost made me cry. That's on their Facebook page. It used to be the Esquire Theater, and I spent a lot of time in that building watching movies. The last one was a ditch attempt for my parents to get rid of us kids while they Christmas shopped. We watched the Battle of Bulge. Back then you could watch anything, until the 60s came along and Deep Throat started showing. But I also wanted to tell you that I really appreciate the documentary filmmakers that are here today, because that is where my future is right now. I was on a bus. I learned how to change a 16mm camera magazine. I learned how to set deck. I learned, and there's one woman here too that loves that production. Set design's my favorite thing. I started moving 100-year-old houses and restoring them just so I could set deck them the way I wanted to. So I really do love that. That was one of my favorite jobs that I got in 1972 with these group of wild and crazy boys on a bus. But then we got a call one day we had some friends that were on the bus that were real filmmakers. One of them was named Bobby Miller, and his dad was Arthur Miller, the famous writer. And the other guy was named Bob Steinbrecher. And they fell in love with Kesey on that trip to New York in 1964. I think they were going to New York State Film School. And they just followed him back to Eugene. And those guys were used to making more money than we were making in film in the late 60s, early 70s. And they went to Hollywood and got jobs. Of course, Arthur Miller was married to Marilyn Monroe at the time. And so that worked out for them. But they would hear of films that were looking for a location and they would have them call us. We had a little thing called the Oregon Film Factory. We were just making commercials. You know, I'd do set deck, I'd act in them, you know, Bob Laird would edit them. It was just a Hobunk, small hometown film house in a garage. And one day I got a call and a guy named Peter McGregor Scott said, Katherine, do you have an Ivy League school there? And I said, yes, it looks like that. And he was the UPM on Animal House. They'd gotten kicked out. Oh, I think 9 different Ivy League schools turned them down. And they tried to go to Missouri and they ended up having a protest with people with signs going, no National Lampoon will be shot here. And they were Universal, it was a B drive-in movie. Universal was going to scrap it, an unknown director. You know, Belushi was known on TV, but he wasn't a Hollywood star. And that day we went out and before 4 o'clock when the United airline left Eugene for LA, we shot 27 locations on a 16mm camera. And we got it to them and they processed the film. And Monday morning, the studio said, okay, looks like you have a location. So that's how that happened. It was just doing commercials pretty much.
So I've done a lot of research on National Lampoon's Animal House because I grew up in Eugene and it's our film, right? And how all of that played out was the writers of the film, Doug Kenny in particular, who co-founded National Lampoon's, they wanted to base it on their experience in the 60s going to college at Dartmouth.
Right.
And so it was supposed to be an Ivy League school, but all the Ivy League schools turned them down. Almost 40 colleges turned them down.
Oh, I didn't know it was
and
that.
So the school president at the time, Clark,
William Boyd.
Yeah. Oh, Boyd. Thank you. So William Boyd had been the president at a previous college that had a film approach them that wanted to shoot there. And he'd asked to see the script and he turned it down because he thought that they wanted to shoot a porn at his college. It was actually The Graduate that he turned down. One of the most iconic films of all time. And he went, whoops, that was a mistake. Cause we could have been, using that to sell our school for many, many years. So after all these colleges, when Universal was trying to make this film Animal House, kept asking to see the script and they said, absolutely not. You're not filming that at our college. William Boyd, when Katherine here and the other group approached them and said, can we please film at University of Oregon? Boyd said, sure, come on in, no problem, whatever you need. And
Use
they said,
my office, right?
Yep. And they said, do you want to see the script? He said, no, I don't want to see the script. Whatever you're doing is just fine. I already made that mistake once. I'm not going to make that mistake again. If you want to film here, do it. And so University of Oregon became the home of the #1 college comedy, widely considered the #1 comedy of all time. And a lot of people would argue the greatest Oregon film in history because of this woman right here in particular playing a key role in that happening.
Well, William Boyd, Bob Laird and I went and talked to him. Now, Laird's still my partner to this day. Bob Laird, Mike Hagan, and I, the editor, the cinematographer, and me, still work together 50-some years later. And we're very close. And we went in to talk to William Boyd. And, 1977 was only 3 years after the big energy crisis and recession, and the mills were closing down. Things were tough at the U of O, and they offered a nice little check. But mostly, William Boyd said, we said to him, we need jobs Bob Laird is an alumni of the U of O. I went there. Ken Kesey was an alumni. And we said, we will make sure that they don't do anything stupid. Like when they let Jack Nicholson streak nude through in 1969 for Drive East Set, right?
Right.
So there was some pushback from the U of O, but we just were real. Said we could really use the work and the money. And I ended up casting 1,400 extras, 1,000 of them out of the unemployment offices. It put a lot of people to work, brought a lot of money into Oregon.
And of course, no one at the time knew that National Lampoon's Animal House would become National Lampoon's Animal House, this great revered thing. It was just another film at the time, right? But I know you and your husband have worked on many, many, many films over the years, yet everyone that I've ever talked to that was associated with Animal House have talked about how this film was special and it was different in terms of the atmosphere, the experience, what made it successful and what made it connect, and the whole overall experience. I wasn't born when the film was made, but my parents were living in Eugene at the time. And so, they've shared it with me. And of course, I've grown up with this film. So maybe with how does that experience of Animal House compare with other films that you worked on, and why does that one stand out? Why has that film become the iconic masterpiece that it is compared to all these other films that have also been made in Oregon that you've worked on?
Now you're gonna make me cry. There was something magical going on. First of all, nobody was anybody, pretty much. Like I said, Belushi was on Saturday Night Live, but that was on late at night, and he wasn't really that big of a name. And the creativity, essentially, when they showed up, Landis was wise enough to know that there needed to be a tone, an emotional core, that we all needed to bond. Because I was working, 120-hour weeks at Mach 9, and I made it about $1.25 an hour, which was less than the minimum wage. But the script pretty much was thrown out. When I read the script, I was an English major, right? I was a poet. I mean, I was into William Butler Yeats. I went, this is disgusting. It was a barfarama, and it was based also on Chris Miller at Dartmouth, Night of the Seven Fires, and I have that story. But the script just went out the window, and what happened is that because we were all nobodies, and because it was a B drive-in movie, and it was Landis's first real Hollywood film, schlock wasn't, Anyway, and because the community showed up, my grandfather predicted the weather for them. They didn't know when to film in November, a parade float, 5 days of parade floats made out of tissue paper. And I told them there is not one day in November where it's not Joe Bloodsnick weather down to here. And my grandfather said, no, this year there's going to be 5 days of clear but very cold weather. And so they timed that parade scene. He's 12 hours off. So what does he do? They have a Chapman crane. The streets have to match from rain and no rain. So he brings a field burner and dries the streets. That's how the community showed up. The welders for the parade floats, the unemployment office. They had all these people show up for me in period costume. That was a prerequisite of me getting the job. You had to go to Goodwill if your auntie still didn't have a 62-ish look. The whole community showed up, and the creativity on the set, I remember just being blown away by it. We were shooting at the Dexter Lake Club, and it was Shamalama. And I had cast a guy on welfare named Robert Cray before he was famous. I had a record store, remember? And I knew these guys. And Robert Bailey was in a band called Shinola with the guy that I lived in a commune with, who was the guitar player. You know, there were like 7 Black people in Eugene. And the magic, I mean, I was supposed to find a 7-foot tall, gigantic Black dude, and there were 7 Black people in Eugene. And we had to bus Black people in from Portland. That's a whole nother story, but it was kind of like, okay, God, the creator, I need a 7-foot tall Black guy that can act. And one day I was crossing the street to the set, this giant black paw lands on my shoulder. And I look up and up and up. And his name was Jebediah DeMoss. He had a hot dog stand on campus. And he goes, I heard you were looking for a gigantic dude. And I said, yeah, but can you act? And he goes, oh, well, I played Othello on Off-Broadway. That is the kind of magic that was happening. It was just crazy. And you filmmakers know when things line up, when there's some kind of energy that's not of this world that just brings everything together for you. That's what happened on Animal House. And the day after they left, I went into a deep depression because I remember that night watching Shamawama. It was Otis Day on this stage with these Black musician extra friends of mine. And the lights were on it. And then there was the makeup and hair and camera and sound and all these people. But it was so powerful that I went, oh my God, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
And you've worked on so many iconic films. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Stand By Me. Did you work on Goonies or Kindergarten Cop or in any of those other? But I mean, so many films that have been made in Oregon, yet Animal House is kind of the one you always go back to, right?
It keeps finding me. It keeps bringing me back.
So I know you've worked as a casting director. You've done a lot of, location scouting work and kind of behind the scenes, producer work and all that. So what are all the different roles that you've done in the film industry?
Well, that's the beauty. You guys have heard of Stradivarius violins, right?
Yes.
Well, Stradivarius would mentor people. You would come into a shop and you started sweeping the wood shavings off the floor. Then you would work your way up, and then he would trust you with this or with that.
Almost like Mr.
Or
Miyagi.
Like what?
Like Mr. Miyagi.
From the Karate Kid.
Exactly. And that's how I was created to be a filmmaker. I started picking up cigarette butts and styrofoam cups off the set and worked my way up, and they would trust me with higher and higher levels of creativity. And I mentor young filmmakers that way. I'll say to Samantha, I want you to set up this table, and Jay, you can have the camera today. I learned how to do everything, and I learned how to appreciate everybody else's job by doing that. Because you really don't know how hard their job is unless you've had to do it. So I did a little bit of everything, and it was wonderful. Set deck is still my favorite, but casting wasn't my favorite. Acting wasn't my favorite. Locations was my favorite. I love to get in the car and go find a place, right? Shoot it. So that's how I was brought up, was to know what the left hand and right hand were doing. And that's how I mentored other people into the industry.
Terrific. Well, does anyone have any questions for Katherine? Either here in Retro Room or those who are joining us online? If not, then it's just going to be Catherine and I talking back and forth
Oh,
all
I
day, and
mean-
everyone just listening to our conversation.
You always know I have plenty, but I want to give other people a chance too. Well, I guess a big one is, did you have a most memorable like performer or filmmaker that you worked with on any of your projects, or an interaction that you had with them that was unexpectedly interesting or at least memorable?
Oh my gosh.
That's a very broad question, but so sorry.
I could tell you my favorite moment ever in film. You know, that scene with Otis Day was right up there. That's when I just went all in for this industry. In Klamath Falls, I had a girlfriend when I was little whose aunt was a famous actress, and she would take, I heard she took milk baths, and I thought that was it. I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I didn't want to be in film. And, but it wanted me. And a perfect example is Jack Nicholson was in Eugene during some protests at Johnson Hall in the late 60s. He was doing a film called Drive Me Sad. And it was a really low budget. It was his first directing job. And he heard that there was going to be a big protest on campus. So he got his film crew there. And one of my dorm roommates, when I was leaving to go to class, and they go, Catherine, Jack Nicholson wants you to be in his movie. And I said, what, are you kidding? I'm flunking biology. And then a couple years later, I was on the set of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it was the electric shock therapy scene. You guys remember that? He was so brilliant in that. But we were all in an ante room, and the scene was in the ante room that they would put Jack Nicholson on a gurney, somehow with his shoes off or shoes on, I can't remember, and they would wheel him into the room. That was the actual institution. This was actually the electric shock therapy room. There wasn't enough room for a bunch of people. But every time he came out, every take, and this group of chairs, he would sit one chair closer. Take 16, he's almost right next to me, right? The whole crew is just cracking up. How he could do that scene where his brain is being fried and come out and make everybody laugh. It was so depressing in there. I just loved him for that. But I made sure I already had plans because I knew what he was going to ask me when he finally got to the chair next to me. I just wasn't into, you know, stars or whatever. I was married. And, but then they had a premiere of Cuckoo's Nest after they were all gone for the inmates at the Elsinore Theater in Salem, Oregon, with the governor, for the inmates, because the extras were inmates. And I got to write down, I got to go to the premiere in Portland with Jack and Michael. Michael Douglas produced it. He's a young kid that drove a beat up car because he was so broke trying to make Cuckoo's Nest. He couldn't afford to get his car fixed. He had to use money for groceries. And I got to go to both premieres with those guys, but the limo ride down from Portland to Salem the next morning after the Portland premiere for the inmates was probably the most memorable time of my life. I had Jack one side, Michael on the other side. They're both really hungover, and they both just hold my hand, and that was just so incredible. We're still friends to this day.
Wow.
That was really something. And when the inmates, when the movie was over, there was not a sound in the theater. And Jack and Milos Forman were pacing back and forth while the inmates watched it. They really were nervous. We're really hoping that it would be okay for them to watch themselves, right, in this film. And we could hear a pin drop. And finally, they sent a spokesperson out to the lobby to Milos Forman. They said, it was so powerful, we couldn't move. And he started crying. He said, you portrayed us as real people, just like Chief Bromden was portrayed as a real human being instead of a stereotype. Camera film is so powerful. I'm just so blessed to be a filmmaker.
Chuck over here had a question for you.
Yeah, you reminded me, my first job with the state of Oregon was in the Dome building, where I think is the opening for Cuckoo's Nest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And that's the Cuckoo's Nest, as I understand it. But I think you mentioned him a second ago, but you had talked about the Black character in Animal House. And I was wondering about the Chief Broom character, if you had any observations there in Cuckoo's Nest.
Well, Will Sampson, okay, they had, this is in my book, but Michael Douglas didn't have a casting person like me to cast the film. They were going to just use the inmates. But I found out later when I had a director wanting Diane Arbus look actors in her film that disfigured people or people that are mentally challenged don't want to be filmed. So they had a sign up. They hired this used car salesman, and he put these signs up on telephone poles that said, do you have a face that scares timber wolves? It was so call this number. Okay, there's a news article about that in the Statesman Journal. I couldn't believe it when I heard that. But Will Sampson had come in to buy a car from this car salesman. And Michael Douglas, just like Jebediah Dumas, could not find a 7-foot tall Indian that could act, right? In Hollywood. You couldn't find these guys in Hollywood. Hollywood only wanted beautiful people. That's all the talent agents had. It's very hard to make it as a character actor in the business. This stereotype about beauty. So Will Sampson came in to buy a used car from the used car salesman. And he asked him, he said, would you be interested in like being in a movie with Jack Nicholson and Michael Douglas? And Will said, how much does it pay? And somehow they got a picture of him to Michael. And Michael met him on an airplane flying to Oregon, by the way. Anyway, so they go to try to find Will Sampson and they can't find him. He was up tree planting up on some mountain. They helicoptered in to tell him he had the job and to see if he could start work the next Monday. It's just so crazy.
That points to how sometimes what happens behind the scenes trying to solve problems that come up is more fascinating than what the camera actually picks up. You had mentioned James Ivory earlier, and I've mentioned this a couple times before, but a few years ago when he was here in Klamath for a screening of one of his films, he and I were talking for a bit, and he started talking about some of his past experiences, and he started chuckling because he remembered about a film he made in India where on the very first day of filming, his lead actor got arrested and thrown in jail. And he then, while they were trying to negotiate this actor's release, they were scrambling to think, okay, what can we shoot that doesn't have our main character in it? And let's just shoot all of those scenes now while we try to negotiate. And he can laugh about that now, but at the time it's like, oh crap, how do we deal with this? So same sort of thing. Like we can't find our key actor because he's off in the wilderness somewhere. Is very that sort of thing happens more often than you think it does in the course of film production.
The story within the story.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Sometimes you get even better stuff.
Wayne raised his hand. Wayne, you had a
Yes.
question?
Oh, no, just a comment. She mentioned, what was it? Oh, yeah. And the actors in Hollywood back in the day were all these beautiful people. And that's why I didn't even harbor an inkling of ever being an actor until I got put into it as a dare, basically. I mean, I was quite a lot older than a lot of people I know when they started. You know, I wasn't one of the beautiful people. So
I know.
fortunately, now they need people that look like somebody on the street.
Well, I was the first one to have a real people casting, file. And so Burger King Americana had come the summer before and wanted real people, and we did 27 vignettes. It was like a film. 2 months to shoot. So because I really didn't agree with that beauty thing. I love character and faces, and so many talented actors, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you walk down the street and they all don't look like Red Hudson. What's that?
Oh, I was going to say, before I forget, you guys were talking about if there was a project you wanted to talk about. And Kurt, I sent you a link to Animal House of Blues.
Actually, I went through our threads and you didn't send me the link.
Oh.
Because I when we talked a couple days ago, I immediately went back through our entire online conversation looking for it, and you never sent it to me.
Okay. So I made this film to help mentor 10 U of O cinematic studies students who couldn't graduate from the U of O. They had 5 weeks till they were supposed to graduate without being mentored by a professional. So like, oh my God, 5 weeks to make a film, mentor, all this, but we did it. And its whole perspective is about the little people, about the community. The first one's called How a Community Helped Create a Hollywood Blockbuster or Two. Because during filming Animal House, I pushed Belushi up on the stage to sing with my friend, Robert Cray, in a band called the Crayhawks. And that was the night the Blues Brothers was born. You just never know. And about my grandfather and about the community and what they did. It's kind of at the University of Oregon, as an Indigenous person, I would say that I try to decolonize situations. You know what I'm saying? I try to decolonize that whole Hollywood beautiful person, and the most important person in the room is John Landis, right, the director. This was about the little people and what they did, and the stories I just told you were unknown stories that I think it's really important for us, just everyday people, to know that everybody can create and contribute to this collaborative art form. It's just so amazing.
So sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to offer, but you've got to look at it first. It might not fit. I would die to have Animal House of Blues play in my hometown that I was born in, at a theater that I sat and watched, never knowing that someday I would be a filmmaker. And I have the OPB version. It took OPB to #1 in the nation. They had the highest Nielsen ratings that night of any station in the United States of America.
We could probably work it into the schedule for the Friday screening where we show it before we show Animal House, and that way people would know the greater context.
or a midnight movie, something
Right.
like that.
Or
Whatever.
right, maybe we show the film, then we have the cast reunion, and then we show House of Blues after that as like a super late screening if people want to hang around or something.
Whatever. I want you to see it first.
Okay.
It was started as a student film, but the music in it is, I had tapes of John Belushi singing with Robert Cray at the Eugene Hotel the night that happened. But I had to license them from people like John Lee Hooker, right? And I spent my whole inheritance from my mom on this film because it was so important to me that the music of Animal House, Shamalama and Shout and all this incredible music that was like the soundtrack of Animal House was so key to the film and key to the documentary that I don't regret it. It was the best thing I've ever done. And these kids have gone on to have careers. The girl that I said, Samantha, I want you to be a set decorator. I don't want to be a set decorator. She's at Warner Brothers right now as a set decorator.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about. Is you can't get a credit unless you get a job, and you can't get a job in film without a credit. So I wanted to bridge that gap and give them credit as editors, as cinematographers, as set deck, and composing. And that's my thing. And now I get to do that at Chamawa Indian School for young high school business kids.
So a little addendum to what Katherine was talking about there. Animal House actually beget two iconic films because after shooting one night, Belushi at the time was flying between Eugene and New York to film Saturday Night Live and Animal House. So flying cross country every single week to be part of the film and Saturday Night Live. And after filming one night, Katherine and some of the other cast members went over to Eugene Hotel, and there was Robert Cray performing and also a gentleman named Curtis Salgado, who's very famous in and around Eugene as a blues man, harmonica player, never really became nationally super famous, but very famous in Oregon and a music icon. And Belushi being from Chicago though, but he was more into like soul, and the Saturday Night Live band at the time was all the iconic session musicians from like Muscle Shoals area, Stax Records and all that, that became the backing band in the film, the Blues Brothers, but they were the house band for Saturday Night Live. And Dan Aykroyd was a huge blues fan, loved blues music, and Belushi and Aykroyd were writing partners on SNL. But Belushi wasn't really part of that world until he went with Katherine over to Eugene Hotel and hung out all night with Curtis Salgado, sang with him. And I'm sure everyone's seen the movie Blues Brothers. There's a character in the film Blues Brothers that is played by jazz icon Cab Calloway. And his name in the film is Curtis, which is a tribute to Curtis Salgado of introducing Belushi to the blues and inspiring like the outfits and behavior that became iconic as the Blues Brothers characters. The aesthetic of it is straight out of Curtis Salgado. That basically was Curtis Salgado's vibe. And so they were paying tribute in the Blues Brothers story to this Eugene musician that Katherine helped introduce to John Belushi.
By the way, one reason, now you got to remember, this was the 70s. And I think the first band of my generation that had black and white people singing together was the Paul Butterfield Blues Band.
Mm-hmm.
And Belushi was 77, it was disco. It's horrible, right? And he was really looking for some new music. But what Curtis did was rhythm and blues. And what Curtis was a white guy singing the blues, right? And Belushi all of a sudden rocked that he could. He didn't have to, I don't know if he felt like he was, appropriating the culture or whatever. But when he saw Curtis Salgado sing the blues, just as great almost as Robert Cray sings the blues, the black man, he went, oh my God. And that rhythm and blues that Curtis, was an expert in was incredible. There's a song called Who's Been Talking that when Belushi heard them sing that song, he went, Katherine, I've got to meet these guys. So when they did a set break, I took them up and I introduced them. Now, Curtis will say that didn't happen, right? But let me tell you, I was probably the most sober person in that bar that night. I had so much fucking work to do. But so Kurt and Belushi said that, he wanted to get up and he wanted to he'd seen Joe Cocker do a version of something and he wanted to do a skit. He wanted to do a Saturday Night Live imitation of Joe Cocker, which is horrible. But he says, Belushi goes, legs, that's what he nicknamed me, legs. It was a joke. Because I got to get my rhythm before I get up. Will you dance with me? And he danced like the Thumper Bee Rabbit. He would tap one foot, tap the other. And then he tried to get up on stage, but he was wearing 62. He was wearing, of course, wardrobe. He was something. And the seams were really tight. He couldn't get his leg up to get up on. I had to get up under his butt and push him up to sing with Curtis Delgado and Robert Cray. That was hilarious. One leg was caught up on the stage. This is real life. Oh God, it makes me laugh to this day.
But that's the foundation of Blues Brothers, which is one of the most iconic films ever on top of Animal House. So I want to make sure those who haven't had a chance to chime in get a chance to. Nina or Lori or Mary Jane, I'm not sure if you joined us yet, or Joyce and Howard, if you have a question for Katherine or something you want to discuss.
Katherine, it's such an honor to have you here and listen to your stories. You're such a real person. And it's just amazing to hear you talk about all the stuff that I remember. I'm older than I look, probably.
Me too.
But it's like when you're talking about this, I can just picture it and see it happening. It's amazing. Thank you so much for visiting us tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're there.
Oh, yes, we are too.
Is anyone else have questions? Otherwise, it's just Katherine. Oh, it looks like Nina has something that she wants to ask.
I don't have a question. I just think it's just inspiring listening to the stories because it's so real. And that's what's great about film, is being able to see the things happen in real, like with real people. Those are the best moments, especially behind the scenes. I love catching things behind the scenes because you see things that are unexpected and they become part of the film that makes it even better. This is very inspiring. Thank you.
Anyone else want to chime in? Otherwise, it's just Katherine and I talking.
Hi. I would like to just thank you for your story. I wasn't able to hear it all. I joined in about 20 minutes late, but thank you very much. Very touching. Thank you.
Bowen,
So
okay.
I'm interested, Katherine. For the people that you mentored or like helped, get their first start and stuff, was there anybody who really surprised you that kept going, or or anybody that surprised you that didn't keep going? If you feel comfortable to share, I don't know.
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for asking. On Animal House, I had to cast 4 pillow fight girls. There were 2 versions of that scene, as you can imagine. There was one in underwear and there was one that was topless. The one in underwear was for television and the topless one was for the movie theater. And I cast 4 women, and one of them, who I'm hoping will show up as part of our cast, Kim Plant, She was a barmaid at the Eugene Hotel. And I was the queen of the Eugene Hotel. I was a Bombay gin drinker with grapefruit. And I'm now 36 years sober. But back then, when I wasn't working, I sure loved it. Anyway, she went on to become the vice president of brand synergy at Walt Disney Pictures.
Holy cow.
Okay. There was a kid I cast in Stand By Me named Corey Pollard, who just kept in touch, and he had a great drama teacher who was really supporting him. He's kind of a troubled kid. And he went on to become a huge first AD in Hollywood.
It's okay.
There's over 100 people that I mentored into the film industry, mostly because Oregon didn't have any film crew. You know, it was fly by night. It was like, here, I need somebody to pick up the cigarette butts and start film off the set. I need somebody to decorate that table. Come on, guys, just do it. You know, we'll help you. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Can you go down maybe the list of some of the other films that you've been able to work on in Oregon? We've talked a lot about Animal House. Of course, I know that one's very special. It's special to anyone who, especially anyone who grew up in Eugene, like me. You know, that's our film. So, but in some of the other projects that you've worked on, you said Stand By Me just now. What are some of the other, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? What are some of the other films you've gotten to work on?
Oh my gosh. My first film was called Cinderella Liberty with James Caan and Marcia Mason and Eli Wallach. And I was trying to put myself through school, answered an ad in the school newspaper, the U of O, and a photographer needed a model and paid $25 an hour. Now, I think the wage was $1.90 in 1972. And I got the job, and he had cerebral palsy, but he was a fiend in the darkroom, and he wanted to experiment with darkroom materials. So I did the job. What I didn't know was that he'd gone up to the Seattle Film Festival when Mark Rydell, the director of Cinderella Liberty, and Vilmos Zsigmond, the famous cinematographer, were up there shooting Cinderella Liberty. And he would laugh hearing me, but he's passed on. But he gimped up to them at the luncheon and just put a picture of me down and said her phone number's on the back, hire her. And Rydell had gone through Lola Hollowell's thousands of beautiful people and wanted somebody a little more exotic looking, and I guess I fit the bill. So I had never flown on an airplane before. Well, first of all, he calls me, and I'm in the bathtub, and my girlfriend Lucretia answers the phone, and she comes to the bathroom. She goes, "Oh my God, Katherine, there's a Hollywood director on the phone. He wants to talk to you about a job on a movie." And I said, "Yeah, right. It's the Merry Pranksters. Hang up." She hung up on him.
Oh no.
About 5 hours later, I answer the phone, and it's this irate man going, "What is this? Do you want this job or not?" He said, "I'm sending you, the plane ticket will be at the counter," or whatever. I can't remember exact details, but I had never flown before. And I thought airplanes were like a bus or a train. You could kind of chase them and jump on. I missed the flight. Then his limo driver, who was also his cook, a retired actor named Victor, had to come back to SeaTac to get me later. I'd never driven in a limo before. I'd never gone to a Hollywood premiere before. I'd never met a movie star before. I'd never met a famous Hollywood director before. And the first thing I do when I walk in, and Victor's pissed off at me, by the way, all the way from SeaTac to Queen Anne Hill. I tripped on a Turkish rug and I fell flat on my face. And right now, first he goes, "Are you okay?" You know what? Nobody ever asked me if I was okay before. When I grew up in an alcoholic family, it was all about them, right? And I was so touched. I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, but I'm mad." And he laughed. He thought that was really funny. He said, "With an entrance like that, you're going to go places." What I didn't know is that until years later, when I'm down there visiting him and we go see John Williams, a famous composer who did Star Wars, there in John Williams's office was a picture of Marilyn Monroe. And Rydell goes over. I mean, this is like 5 years later. He goes, "Remember when you fell on that Turkish rug?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Her first audition, she fell on a rug."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And what was so ironic is that at the time, Ken Kesey had nicknamed me Marilyn Monroe. And I think Bobby Miller had something to do with it. She was his stepmom. I don't know. I asked him once, and he wouldn't tell me why he did that. But that was so amazing. And Rydell and I are still friends to this day. We just lost Jimmy Kong.
Yep.
So Cinderella Liberty was one of them. What was my very favorite non-famous movie? It may have been Disney's Four Diamonds. I think it was television, but I unplugged my TV in 1986 when my kids were young, and I've never plugged it back. I read too much. I watch film. So did they. Or Discovery Channel or public broadcasting. Yes. Yes. But it was written by a kid dying of cancer. It was called Four Diamonds. It was just a beautiful movie. And my friend Peter Warner directed it. Wonderful documentary filmmaker. He did Fentorn Garden in 1972, which we showed at that movie art house I told you about. That was one of my personal favorites.
Well, you said that your nickname was Marilyn Monroe before, but now you're known as the godmother of film in Oregon. How did you get that moniker?
I'm not sure it was a compliment. Yeah, well, in 72, nobody was going to the legislature to try to get money for local filmmakers to make their own local films, okay? I ended up getting appointed by Governor Atiyeh to a task force on motion picture production because I organized something like you guys that was called Mid-Oregon Production Arts Network and OMPA in Portland. And I did that with Laura Pryor, his film commissioner, who was so great. And Oregon was still suffering financially. And Victor Atiyeh had the vision to realize that film was an industry, it was a business, and it was highly labor intensive. It was non-polluting. They would drop money here and go back home again. But in order to really give them what they needed, we filmmakers needed to be supported to create films to learn our chops here so that we could better support, right? Poetic cinema was all out of Kesey's pocket. He paid for everything, but not everybody could do that. So I ended up on, and then I got appointed by Governor Straub to Cuckoo's Nest. And I was the first professional location scout and casting director in Oregon. And I've traveled to LA a lot trying to drum up business for us starving artists up here. But probably what really, I was named at a luncheon of casting directors. And what happened was, when I was on Governor Atiyeh's task force for motion picture production, we wrote the blue book of what the Oregon Film Commissioner needed to be. He needed to be somebody that had relationships with the money in LA, He needed to honor the local filmmakers, the local environment, the local people, and support all of us together. So we wrote this very specific job description for a film commissioner. And this is after Warren Merrill got fired from the set of Cuckoo's Nest and Why I Was Brought On for accusing Jack Nicholson of smoking pot on the set. And Jack said to him, "What, are you nuts?" Nobody would ever do any drugs in that building, I'm telling you. Not with all these inmates running around. They would kill you if you looked at them wrong. No, you were not high on that set. Anyway, so David Wilson was the first film commissioner that really went by Victor Attia's guidelines. And we had two people a person from the Klamath area. He was involved with Art Dupes in Medford, a guy from Medford, two people from Portland, one person from Salem, and me from Eugene. And we met for a year about, this is how you create an industry in Oregon for a living wage. So all of a sudden, all these films were coming to Oregon, but they were going to Portland. And there was so much work that outside casting directors were moving to Portland. And there was a huge competition, and they started fax wars to producers bad-mouthing each other. And one day I said, "We're having a come to you-know-what meeting." And I invited all 13 of the fairy godmothers of casting to this meeting at the Governor Hotel. And I said, "This is going to stop. You guys cannot be bad-mouthing each other. Whoever gets the job, it's because the producer thinks they have the qualities that they want." And this she was older than me. Her name was Carol Lukens, and she stood up and she said, "You need to listen to Katherine. She's been doing this longer than all of you put together. She's the godmother of film. And just because she doesn't live in Portland and it's not casting right now doesn't mean she doesn't know what she's doing." God bless her. She named me the godmother of Oregon film. And I got applause. And that stopped the fax wars of bad-mouthing each other. But I was pissed.
Well, it is interesting. So OMPA is still an ongoing organization. In fact, I was at an OMPA gathering last night in Medford. It's statewide, film support organization. Klamath Film is a member of OMPA. So you can think of like all of the different services that we do from the Klamath Film perspective as being like a regional hub of OMPA being the statewide organization. And then there's also the Oregon Film Office, who are the ones that have done the Oregon Film Trail now, which, Katherine, I'm not sure the last time you were down this way, but we now have a historic marker on the Oregon Film Trail in Klamath Falls, thanks to the help of Tim Williams. So
I love him. And when he's the most local centric film commissioner we've ever had. I thought David Wilson was great. The first day on the job when he was hired, now I've known 5 film commissioners, and I always had to drive either to Portland or Salem to meet with them, right? Make an appointment, go meet with them. He calls me up and he goes, "I'm coming to your house." And I live way in the heck up the McKenzie River. His first day as the Oregon Film Commissioner, he drove to my house. And you know what? I had my apron on and I was canning tomatoes. Because everybody's equal in the eyes of my creator. Nobody's superstar. And he just loved that.
does anyone else have questions for, I feel like we could just kind of sit here and listen around a campfire all night,
Yeah.
kind of. But But I want to make,
I feel so honored about being your guest. To come home to Klamath Falls in this way means more to me than you'll ever know.
Oh, the honor's on us.
I would like to say that sometimes you see performers in movies where you sense that those involved, the performers are enjoying themselves. And Blues Brothers and Animal House are two that come to my mind. And I think you probably had a lot to do with that.
Thank you.
That's something that actually Catherine and I talked about a couple days ago when I was back in Eugene, how especially lower budget films, sometimes you'll notice, I don't know, maybe Wayne, you've noticed you're guilty of this a couple of times in some of the things you've been in. It's sometimes you'll see actors and they're supposed to be like, say it's like a horror film, a slasher type film, but even though they're running away or there's blood and guts, they've got a huge smile on their face because like this is just so fun, like you can't fully get into the character of I'm supposed to be scared, but this is awesome. I've got like blood and guts all over me, and there's a guy chasing after me with a knife. This is cool.
I was on a trailer. I was cast as a collector, a henchman, in a trailer, and in the scene, we're in a garage, a big automobile garage, and we had the guy that I was collecting the money from tied up in a chair, and I got walking around in there, and I got an idea, and I asked the owners of the garage, "You mind if I use some of these tools?" Well, ended up, I don't remember what the lines were, but basically got this guy that's tied up in a chair, a steel chair, and I sit on his lap facing him, and I got, what was it, a knife or some dang thing, big, and delivered the line, "Where's the money?" or whatever it was, and he didn't have it, and I pull up this knife and and his groin and my groin are both right here. And we did a few takes from different angles of that. And the director said, "Well, it's a wrap for you, Wayne." And he said, "I'd like to walk you out to your car." Well, he did. And on the way out, we went out, and he ended up getting an envelope out of his car and giving me an envelope, and had some money in it. But what was really remarkable is when we were walking out to the car, he said, "Are you really like that?" I said, "No, I was acting. I like to have fun," but I had him convinced I was just mad as a hatter.
You had me convinced when I just saw you reenact that. Oh my God, that was so great.
Yeah, I think it had the desired effect. He wanted me to play a crazy person, so
oh, that is
brought it.
Chuck, to your point though, part of what I think makes Animal House work is to an extent of what Catherine's talked about, how you could argue Donald Sutherland was a big star at the time, and Belushi was rising because of the popularity of Saturday Night Live. But there were all these people who worked on that film that have gone on to great careers. Kevin Bacon I think that's his very first film. Tim Matheson had a great career post Animal House. Few others had notoriety throughout the years. Some have gone on to other roles, like I'm blanking on his name. Stephen became a great writer and has written tons and tons of TV shows and films. But at the time, outside of maybe Sutherland, all of them were just like, "Hey, we're here. Let's just make the best of it because who knows where the next paycheck's going to come from."
About Sutherland.
Yeah.
He wasn't, they weren't going to have a Hollywood guy in the movie. But Universal saw the outtakes, what do you call those? Having a senior moment. They would ship the footage to LA and they would process it and they would watch, the studio was watching it. It was so great what they were seeing. They went, this was after my contract for a B drive-in movie was already signed and I'd signed off on it. They threw another $1 million into a $1 million budget. And then they threw another $1 million in. But they said, you need to get some kind of star. before we hand you this last check. And Belushi goes, I'm going to take you guys out to meet Ken Kesey. He'd make a great professor, right? And Ken said, are you kidding? He goes, no, I spent years in Hollywood trying to get in the business. I prefer being a writer now. And the script supervisor, Boots, was a friend of Sutherland's. And so she flew to LA to talk to him about being in it. But he wasn't supposed to be in it. It was supposed to be somebody I was going to cast. Isn't that wild?
So now Kevin Bacon is iconic, Tim Matheson, Karen Allen, of course, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and a bunch of other people that have had huge roles either on camera or behind the camera, all came out of this one little film that wasn't even supposed to be made in Eugene. And yet this one film has kind of been like the little Pied Piper of Oregon filmmaking, and all these people that went on to great careers because of this thing that Katherine didn't even really want to be a part of either, and somehow got sucked into it and was like this key piece to make all of it come together. So on behalf of Oregonians everywhere, thank you, Katherine, for your work on that. But I'm sure a lot of those people who have gone on to big stars too, because you've talked about how Animal House was different, and you can tell Animal House is different just from watching it. I'm sure a lot of those folks still keep in touch too. Do you still run into occasionally Kevin Bacon or Tim Matheson or Karen Allen or?
Kevin Bacon was treated like shit by everybody, and he couldn't keep in touch with anybody after. He was so smarmy. He was just like, and it was like everybody loved the Deltas and nobody liked James, Button or Niedermeyer or Kevin Bacon. I've never reached out to Kevin Bacon, and he hasn't reached out to any of us either. You never see him at the Comic Cons or anything like that either.
Okay.
But James Doughton and Mary Louise Weller and the woman who played Brunella, she's married to Eric Roberts. We're still very close. And Tim Matheson is kind of, big star, Virgin River, blah, blah, blah. Called me up a month ago and said, I want to see you. I'm coming to Eugene. So he goes, where do you want to meet for coffee? I said, booth number 3 at the EMU Fishbowl.
Yeah.
That was the booth that we shot the food fight scene. Started that. And so that was great. He's doing a documentary. He needs my help because I'm the only one that has over 1,000 photographs behind the scenes.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that was nice. And I went, speaking of these actors, and Kurt may want to talk to me on the side later, but I haven't really approached Tim Matheson yet or any of the big stars of Animal House, because typically what you would need is per diem, their flight, 5-star hotel.
Right.
It's kind of.
But could they join a Zoom call for an hour though on a Friday night?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get them to do that, but I've learned how to do this. You start with what you have and you build. So my foundation is Mr. Michael Ostomy, the janitor with the chainsaw. Anybody remember him?
Yep, that had to cut up the horse in the president's office.
Yeah, he's coming.
Okay.
And Maida Belove was the beanie snatcher, and she was the #1 Delta girl. You'll recognize her. 2 of the pillow fight girls, I think I have.
Okay.
You got to remember half of the cast are dead.
Right.
This is how many years later? Because I was really close with Stephen first, and he would have come in a heartbeat. He always did for me. But, I'm starting with Dump Truck, who's famous in he was a Delta. You'll recognize him. Bruce Lundy, his big scene got cut out when he was in a diaper. Landis shot twice as many scenes as ended up in Animal House. I did a scene with Tim Matheson at the Rainbow Motel, but it's cut out, but it's in the trailer. So I'm building with my foundation people.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Now-
We will happily take whoever we can get that was part of the film to be a part of our little
Well-
mini reunion during the film festival.
But if you offer them to come live, then you need to know that's going to cost.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm just pretty much saying, come on, Mary Louise, just do Zoom, because I don't know, it just seems like, budget, it gets really expensive. Trust me, we put on the 40th anniversary for Animal House, and I brought up Otis Day, right? Dwayne Jesse, that cost a fortune. Brought up Brunella and Eric Roberts were there, that cost a fortune. It's expensive.
I don't expect any of these people to actually attend in person. I'm hoping that they can join a Zoom call for maybe half an hour to an hour and just kind of talk about whatever. If they do want to travel, amazing. But Klamath, since we lost our airlines, is not the easiest place to visit anymore.
Do we even have
Oh,
a 5-star
what?
hotel around here?
Really?
Well, the Running White Ranch.
Does that consider itself 5-star?
Well, it's one of the nicest resorts in all of Oregon, so that would
I
definitely be
hope
the place to put people up.
Yeah, but it still costs, it's still expensive. And we lost our shirt,
Yeah.
we were trying to reclaim our, we won in 2003. We had the world's record, Guinness Book of World's Record toga party.
Yeah.
We had unbelievable. And I got the Kingsmen and Otis Day and the Knights as a double bill for the concert, for the toga party. But then Guinness changed the rules, and you had to wear a white toga, and you had to sign this, and you had to do that. And so, it wasn't me, but the community of Cottage Grove, Oregon lost their shirt, flying all these stars up. And, they didn't draw enough people.
Yeah.
So if it drew more people, if it really did, I'd say go for it, but it doesn't.
Well, you mentioned toga. We are planning to have a toga costume contest at the film festival this year. But Animal House has so many iconic scenes, but that toga party scene is up there top tier, to the point where even the University of Oregon has remade that, and they made their own version with University of Oregon alumni athletes that they show at all the football games. And so in between the third and fourth quarter of home football games, they play shout and the whole stadium sings along. And they've got now, instead of they started by doing the original from Animal House, and now they've got one with a bunch of football players and track and field former athletes have gone on to do famous things. And they reshot this thing. And I'm friends with a bunch of people that were in that. And all of them will talk about how that was just the most fun experience they've ever had. Was Dan Fouts, Ahmad Rashad, Kenny Wheaton, Ashton Dean, all these Oregon legends getting together in togas with Otis Day playing. But you were there for the original, right? Let's hear about the actual toga scene and how all of that played out.
Well, guess what? I sent Phil Knight Animal House of Blues, and he got the idea from my documentary. I am friends with Bill Dellinger, who's a very close friend of my husband's, he and Phil Knight and, the Nike guys, right? And John Jaquaw, the lawyer, was even closer friend of ours. And so I sent that to Phil Knight. He and I were talking about doing I don't know if you know this, but he created running shoes for Indigenous people. We have an extra bone on the side of our feet, and our feet are really extra wide. And to help Indian people with their health, he made us shoes. Bill Nye. That's so cool. So anyway, I sent him Animal House of Blues to thank him, and he stole my idea. We reenact with Otis Day at the Dexter Lake Club.
Yeah.
But so I didn't get sued by Universal. I had to have Otis kind of like a Cap Calloway character that you mentioned earlier that played Curtis, right?
Yep.
So yeah, we reenacted that scene. Yeah. You're gonna
Well, what about the original experience of it? It was shot in a basement, I believe, at one of the U of O facilities, and now it's just like an empty like storage space at this point.
It was, okay, so when we first got the call for location scouting, they said, do you have a beat up old house in the middle of a fraternity row? And Laird was the one that got that call. And he said, yes, and went out and filmed it. It was the Phi-Psi house, it was the Animal House, and then it was the Sigma Nu house. And in the very beginning of the film, the guys are walking from Carson Hall across campus, and then there's a pan shot from Phi-Psi to the old, it was a ex-con halfway house there. But it used to be a fraternity. And then the Sigma Nu. But we couldn't film in the Animal House because it was an ex-con facility for parolees going to school. So we decorated the outside and we shot the toga party scene in the basement of the Sigma Nu, which doubled as Mary Louise Weller, Babs, and Mandy's sorority. There's a scene where Jim Dotton drives up and drops Mandy off. And then she's in the window, right?
Yep.
You believe she's on the ladder. Yeah. They loved it that all of these locations were like next door to each other.
Yeah, it was perfect. Almost like the first 39 schools, they weren't supposed to be there, that they tried to ask for it.
Amen, brother. It
Yeah.
was. And here's another thing you don't know. Chris Miller took me aside, showed me this picture he had taken with Ken Kesey the night we shot at the Dexter Lake Club. Because Ken lived not very far from Dexter. And he said that he was going to tell me a secret, that Animal House was actually inspired by the Mary Prankster's trip to New York in 1964. He was a senior at Dartmouth. But they knew they couldn't make a movie about acid because people had tried and it didn't work. So they decided to go back to 1962 when he was an innocent at Dartmouth. And so was Doug Kenny. But it was on an archetypal scale of story elements. Those boys are Mary Pranksters.
So we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure people get a chance to share final thoughts before we wrap up tonight. But Katherine, thank you so much for being here and sharing all these amazing stories. Let's go around. Chuck, do you have a final question or a final quick thought you want to share?
I already made it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Joyce and Howard, do you want to chime in with anything real quick here while we have a few minutes?
Thank you again, Katherine. I have enjoyed this so much, and it'll be nice to actually see the movie at the theater and see you again, I hope.
The plan is for Katherine to come down and be part of our Friday night festivities.
Awesome. Cool. See you then.
Bowen?
Well, I always have so many questions that I could ask, but I don't want to hold everyone hostage like I do usually. But in this case, I just want to share that it is absolutely a privilege to be able to talk to you and hear about all of your knowledge, your experiences, everything, all the passion I feel from you just talking about it is something that really resonates with me. And as someone myself who's from Klamath and is aspiring to, who's just started this journey of entering filmmaking and being a performer and being a part of that experience of enjoying the beauty of stories and narratives and how much they really change the world. I'm very appreciative that I got to meet you and talk with you. You are absolutely so much of an inspiration. I absolutely was not expecting this, but I'm so glad I experienced it. And I'm really happy that I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person.
Oh, me too. Thank you for honoring me with your good words. I just feel so blessed. And I have to tell you what I tell these kids I mentor. It's almost like you need to be in service to film. It's a spiritual thing. It's like Animal House felt like there was Coyote the trickster was watching out for us. and all these miracles kept happening, one after the other. And I think there's a God of film. And I think that we are chosen to be filmmakers. And I think it's our purpose. And I think it's an important task. And I tell them, if you want to be in film, first be of service to film. Come to these meetings like Kurt is, here facilitating all of you coming together. It creates an energy, and that's quantum mechanics. Create an energy of being of service to film, and film will end up returning the favor to you. That's all I wanted to say. And with
Okay.
Thank you.
For those who are on the call here, Mary Jane, do you have a final question or anything you want to share as we wrap up? Or maybe Mary Jane had to step aside for a second. That's okay. Lori, anything that you want to ask while we have a few minutes?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. It's been really a delightful to listen to. So I want to go back to the reference of godmother of Oregon film, and at least when I heard it, I thought sort of more of like tying it in with your sort of nurturing and carrying people sort of starting their careers and stuff, and so it makes sort of sense in my mind. But you said that you didn't particularly like it, so I'm wondering, is there a reference that you would prefer to be known for?
no, you know what, Lori, at first, it was because of where that came out of, right? I was upset and I was being really strong that I got that name. But then later people said the same thing that you did. It's like, like, let's call Katherine, maybe she'll put some fairy dust on this project. And I've done that. I've helped package a lot of independent people's films by getting an actor on board or whatever. It's whatever it takes. We're in this together. And I'm older now, and I'm a wildfire survivor. I'm having to build my own place because there's nowhere to live in Lane County, especially on my beloved McKenzie River. It's kind of tough right now. And I'm not able to do what I used to do in my heyday, especially when Philip was working with, like, oh my gosh, he was Sherry Lansing's husband, Billy Friedkin, right? Philip would be working with all these famous directors, and I would like go to the set, meet them, and pitch them other people's projects. And, the actors, like, oh my gosh, great people, Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones. I don't have those resources like I used to, but I've delved more into story now, and that as an elder and as a member of the board of Elderberry Wisdom Farms, an indigenous 501c3, story is sacred, and that's where you can rely on me the most to help you. So thank you, Lori, for bringing up that, because other people said the same thing you did about the nurturing. I'm glad you brought that up.
You're welcome.
Having worked in Hollywood for 12 years myself, I tell people often, I know, Bowen, you and I have had this conversation before. I think Wayne, you and I have talked about it too. There's people that from the outside are perceived as the stars, but when you're on a set, the real rock stars are the ones that are making things happen behind the scenes, like the costume, hair and makeup people and the grips, because absolutely they're the first ones on the set. They're the last ones to leave, and nothing happens without them. So it's oftentimes the people like Katherine who are making everything happen on camera, behind the scenes, all the little nuance and all the little teeny tiny things that have to happen in order to make a film occur. People who have been there, done that, and have been a part of it know they're the real magic workers and the real rock stars when it comes to making film happen, because it doesn't matter how big of a star you are, you're not filming unless there's hair, makeup, costume, lighting, electric, camera, all the people doing all those jobs. James Ivory has told me numerous occasions, there's a reason why the names at the end of a film take 10 minutes to read, and every single name is important. And if one of those,
working together.
yep. And if even one of those people is not bought into the project, it is doomed to fail.
Yep. Yes.
Wayne, do you?
Ed.
Oh,
Thank you, Kurt, for contacting me and bringing me into this wonderful.
well, we do our best to also make sure that anyone who has Klamath area roots that we keep in contact with. So James Ivory, Bergen Swanson, Sky Borgman, Laura Oliver. We've been trying to get in touch with Chris Eyre, but he hasn't responded yet. But trying to make sure that we have an ongoing community here that's growing, and also those who have grown up here and gone on to great things. So we appreciate that we could welcome you into that group of Klamath filmmakers or people with Klamath roots who have gone on to work in film. Wayne,
We'll bring Chris in. We'll bring Chris in, especially with what you're doing on Saturday. He is going to just love what you're doing on Saturday.
oh yeah, we would love to have him be a part of that panel if we can even have it virtually, because what she's referencing is this year we have a documentary that's all about Modoc tribes, and it focuses a lot on the Modoc War as a documentary. And then we have a narrative short that was shot here, well, actually kind of down in the Tule Lake area. It was shot last year. That is a narrative story based on the Modoc Wars. And so we have a narrative Hollywood perception of a historic event and a documentary detailing a historic event. And so the idea is we're going to show both films and have a panel discussion with at least one tribal member, the filmmakers. If we can get Chris, that would be amazing, to talk about Hollywood perception versus historic fact, and how that can kind of twist and change perceptions of things, and how true to life what we've seen on camera is to what the historic documentation shows is what happened to the tribes and what happened during the Modoc Wars, something like that. So I thought that would be a really interesting panel discussion for our Saturday afternoon at the film festival.
Excellent. And I know he'll be really proud of you for doing that. He tried to make a movie called Hollywood Indian for a long, long time. And he's pretty busy, but I've got his home number. I'm just going to wait for the right time.
I've tried to reach out to him at University of New Mexico or New Mexico State, where he's at these days, and they wouldn't respond back to me. So, but I will keep trying. But if you can help with that, that would be amazing.
I will. Just let me get down there, and then I'm going to let him know what happened.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Wayne and Nina, and you two haven't had a chance to chime in, so I want to give you a chance to get final words in, or if you have a final question that you want to ask.
Really quick, as filmmakers, we're storytellers, and you, the lady, are a masterful storyteller. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you for sharing.
Nina, as a filmmaker yourself, and do you have a final question or something that as we say goodbye to everybody here, you want to chime in with?
I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be a part of it. I really enjoyed meeting Katherine, listening to the story of everything. And I look forward to actually getting to meet all of you in person, because I plan on being there for your festival in September.
Very nice.
So I just look forward to getting to know everybody and being a part of this, because I love making films. It's a blast. And meeting more people is what makes it happen. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nina, for joining us, and we look forward to having you out here and joining us for future meetings as well, hopefully.
yes, definitely.
Mary Jane, are you with us again? Maybe not. Okay, well, Katherine, I want to give you the final word as our special guest tonight. If you have any final bits of wisdom or anything that you'd like to share as we say goodnight. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us and share all of these amazing stories.
Oh, I think I'm going to go cry now. Really, this really means a lot. Really means a lot. I didn't want to miss a minute of it. That's why I was early. In film, if you're 15 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. So there you go.
Well, you are always welcome to join us for a meeting. We do this every month on the first Thursday of every month from 6 to 8. You are always, always, always welcome to join us. You don't have to be the featured guest. You could just listen in the background if you want.
I would love it. I would love it. September, I start though on a BBC film. I'm a Indigenous bicultural bridge for BBC into Indian country of the Northwest, and I'm on an MTV project. So if I'm not there, it's because I can't be. Okay. Okay.
Well, as a reminder to everyone, tickets are now on sale for the 10th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. It will be September 16th through the 18th at the Ross Ragland. And there are also online tickets. So if you cannot attend in person, you can stream the entire festival, watch on demand, and the on-demand side will be available through the end of September. So don't feel like you have to sit in the Ragland all day long, every single day. And if you step out for lunch, you're going to miss something. You can go and watch the films online that you might miss. So with that, you can go to klamathfilm.org for more details on tickets. I'm still building out the website, but it'll be ready in a day or two. If you get a chance, Katherine Wilson's book is Echoes from the Set, 1967 to 2017. 50 years of filming on location. I have just started reading this, Katherine. It's been a busy couple days, but it is fascinating. And we also have an autographed book of Animal House, our alma mater, that we will be giving away at the Klamath Independent Film Festival that is autographed by Katherine.
All right. Just
So-
let me know about Animal House of Blues.
Yes. Yes. Send me the link and
People there for that.
send me the link and I will absolutely check it out and we'll see how we can incorporate it into the schedule. So everyone, thank you that participated in this, and we'll see you next month for our next member meeting. We do need volunteers for the film festival. If anyone wants to help out, please do. We will absolutely find a job for you to do during the film festival, and hopefully we'll see you September 16th to the 18th for KIF. So thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate it. And Katherine, again, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thanks, Kurt, so much. You are so great. You're awesome at what you do.
Well, thank you. We'll see everyone next month.
Right. See you
Good
guys.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.